Ladies and gentlemen, I am Major Anna Narduzzi, your narrator for today's ceremony. On behalf of the officiator, Colonel Kyle Hicks, I welcome you to this special event. Please take this time to silence all electronic devices. Today, the men and women of the United States Air Force pay special tribute to Lieutenant Colonel Cynthia on the occasion of her retirement from active duty, culminating over 20 years of faithful and honorable service in the United States Air Force. We would like to extend a special welcome to Lieutenant Colonel Clefish's family. Joining us today are Lieutenant Colonel Clefish's wife, Carissa, and her two daughters, Ruby and Pearl. Lieutenant Colonel Clefish's mother, Beverly. Her sister, Suzanne. Her brother, Doug. Carissa's parents, Pam and Mike. And the many uncles, aunts, nephews, and cousins. On behalf of Lieutenant Colonel Clefish, I'd also like to extend a special welcome to friends who have traveled many miles to be here. Also joining us today are Mr. Ed Oshiba, Director, Air Force Civil Engineer Center. Colonel Matt Benavenia, Deputy Director, Air Force Civil Engineer Center. Colonel Tiffany Warnke, Director of Staff, Air Force Civil Engineer Center. Colonel Dean Hartman, Director of Planning and Integration, Air Force Civil Engineer Center. We also would like to welcome all commanders, chiefs, first sergeants, their spouses, and other members of Team AFCAC, and especially the men and women of the mighty P&I. We appreciate your presence and camaraderie, and thank you all for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem and the presentation of the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner
Mr. John Cotton Clark will now deliver the invocation.
Cynthia, please hear these special retirement blessings to you, offered on behalf of our entire congregation at Northwood Presbyterian Church. I know our recently departed pastor, Tracy Smith, dearly wanted to be here, and I know that you dearly wanted her here. Yet she shared with me these special words, and I, as an elder of the church, am honored that you and Carissa entrust me to deliver them here instead. So please hear these words. This is where your life has arrived. After all the years of effort and toil, look back with graciousness and thanks on all your great and your quiet achievements. You stand on the shore of new invitation to open your life to what is left undone. Let your heart enjoy a different rhythm when drawn to the wonder of other horizons. Have the courage for a new approach to time. Allow it to slow until you find freedom to draw alongside the mystery you hold and befriend your own beauty of soul. Now is the time to enjoy your heart's desire, to live the dreams you've waited for, to awaken the depths beyond your work and enter into your infinite source. Cynthia, may God bless you, Carissa, Ruby, Pearl, and indeed your entire family as you move into this next phase of life. Your Northwood family goes with you as well. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Before we begin the retirement portion of today's ceremony, I'd like to welcome Colonel Dean Hartman to the stage for a special presentation.
I just want y'all to know I have pipes just like the individual that just sang the national anthem. She barely edged me out in a sing-off, so just so y'all know that. So what do you think about San Antonio? Good city? And I know this is about sin. Believe me, I'll get there. It's just a roundabout loop. One thing that happens when you walk around, especially in uniform, everybody here, so many people thank you for your service. And that's truly an honor. And that's what I tell them. You know what? It's an honor. Why do I tell them that? Look at the family that we have. There's a certain individual in the front kind of row there that may be dysfunctional family, but I'm looking at you, mister. But we have a family. What else does it do for us? We have core values. It gives us intrinsic core values that I think make us better humans, make us better teammates, make us better individuals that serve this country and serve it with pride. But also what it does is, I'll tell you, it makes us action-oriented, right? So, but what happens when you get a lot of type A's in the same room? It's not a lot of fun, right? But what it does, again, it makes us action-oriented. So when we recognize something needs to be done or something isn't quite right, we take action. And this is where, and it takes individuals that want to do that want to step out and take action in times of need. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody's kind of wired to do that. So that's why I appreciate what Cynthia did, and that's why I'm up here. Liz is in the audience with us, and Sam's with us as well. But you have this intrinsic knowledge that something isn't quite right. Cynthia recognized that. I don't know for sure whether it was the noise, whether it was the mother instinct, or whether it was just the officer in her, the airman in her, that said, you know what, something is going on and it's not quite right. It's a darn good thing that she did that. Because after she realized something was going on, and it was going on in the pool, she made a quick dash. I don't know if it was 5-foot, 10-foot wall, but watching her in the gym, it wouldn't have mattered. She could scale either. But she made a quick entry into the pool and basically saved a young life. And Liz will be the testament to that. And I appreciate you too, Liz, because she reached out to me immediately and said, this is not something I normally do, but I have an individual here who was basically a hero, who saved my child, who didn't act selfless but service-oriented, that made a difference not only in her life but in Samantha's life. And so I just wanted to say thank you, Cynthia. That's an honorable thing that you did, but also it's something that I think our military instills in us, that service before self. But you took action, and because of that, we don't know what would have happened if you didn't. But I'll tell you, after reading the report and understanding that you had a child in severe need that was basically turning blue and in the throes of potentially drowning, you saved a life. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remain standing as Colonel Hartman presents Lieutenant Colonel Cleffish the Air Force Achievement Medal for her act of outstanding achievement. Attention to orders. Citation to accompany the award of the Air Force Commendation Medal. Lieutenant Colonel Cynthia R. Cleffish distinguished herself by outstanding achievement while assigned to Air Force Civil Engineer Center, Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center, Air Force Material Command. Colonel Cleffish displayed exceptional gallantry in the rescue of a drowning of a child at a residence in Palacios, Texas. She instinctively recognized the noise of a 3-year-old child that had climbed into a pool and was in the midst of drowning. Without hesitation, she ran to the pool, dove over a 5-foot ledge, entered the water, and pulled the child to safety. She did this while expertly directing personnel in the vicinity to request emergency services. Despite the child being pale and having blue lips due to the near-drowning incident, her immediate response and selfless action most certainly saved a precious life. The distinctive accomplishments of Colonel Cleffish reflect credit upon herself and the United States Air Force. At this time, members of AFCEC will now perform a flag folding ceremony in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Cleffish and her dedicated service to her country. Please be seated. For more than 200 years, the American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor, white signifies purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of Air Force satellites that circle our globe and on the fin flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every airman who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on our U.S. Air Force, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generations of Americans have been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the retirement portion of today's ceremony. Please rise and remain standing for the reading of the retirement order. Colonel Hicks and Lieutenant Colonel Klefish, please come to center stage. Yes, sir.
Please sit down. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to San Antonio. Glad you could join us. Cynthia, first off, let me just say congratulations. Also, thank you very much for asking me to do this. It's my honor and privilege. Also, it's a win-win because I get to come to San Antonio. And I also had to lose 10 pounds to make sure my uniform's still fit. So I appreciate the motivation. Okay, Mr. Shiba, Colonel Benvenga, Colonel Warnke, Colonel Hartman, ladies and gentlemen, commanders, welcome to our retirement ceremony. I'm going to give you a little bit of background of Colonel Kleffich's 20 years as a United States Air Force officer. Highlight some of the things that you probably might know, and for her family, probably a lot of things that you didn't know. As Suzanne told me when we did the promotion ceremony back in Hawaii, she said, I had no idea my sister did all that stuff, and that was only in 10 years. So today we're going to talk about a 20-year career. It started back in 1994. Cynthia graduated from Douglas County High School in Georgia and went on to Georgia Tech to be an engineer. She finished her degree in 4 years and graduated there in September of 1998, but she decided that she was going to become an Air Force pilot. So she had to wait around for about 9 months until June of 1999 before her training slot became available at Advanced Air Force Base. So in those 9 months, she became a special assistant to commander. What does that generally mean? That's a made-up job, generally, to keep somebody gainfully employed, show up a couple hours a day. But we all know Cynthia, that's not her style, right? Cynthia decided that she was going to make things better. She fixed the entry pilot program because it was only a year old and she was actually going through it. So she fixed it while she was going through it. She got the ROTC unit there ready for an IG inspection because, generally their mode was make sure we graduate our students and don't worry about the paperwork. She took care of the paperwork. They wound up getting 0 write-ups from the IG. And the commander said at the end of her first OPR, Officer Performance Report, was that she was a talented, young, dedicated officer and a future leader. This is less than 1 year in the Air Force. So then she goes on to Advanced Air Force Base, which is in Oklahoma. And she goes to one of our pilot training schools there, finishes up 6 months of pilot training, takes 12 exams, has a 92.3 average, solos in a T-37 or tweet, and then decides, this flying thing is really not for me. I really don't think that this is going to be my calling in the Air Force, and I think I want to go be an engineer. So it was a good day for the United States Air Force Engineering Corps because we got a superior officer to join our ranks. And so December 1999, she goes out for her first civil engineering assignment at Edwards Air Force Base out in California. And she spends the next 2.5 years there. And what we call a civil engineering group, which means it's a very big squad, a very big unit, about 1,500 people, for an incredibly large installation. She becomes the pavements expert. And I'm going to give you just a sample of what her responsibilities were. Everybody probably knows, but most of our civilians do, is that the space shuttle is stationed and operates out of Edwards Air Force Base because it has extremely long runways. And so Cynthia's responsibility as a pavements engineer included the following: 6 miles of paved runway, 62 miles of unpaved runway out in the middle of the desert, 289 miles of roadways on the installation itself, and 264 miles of unpaved road out of the desert where we had our desert runways. And so I'll save you the public math. That's 647 miles of roads and airfields that she has to take care of. And to put it in perspective, especially for our guests, that's like driving from Atlanta to Knoxville, back to Atlanta, and back to Knoxville one more time. That's what she was responsible for taking care of. And she did a superior, great job. She had a little pressure though, because one of her first jobs was a $4.5 million runway repair that had a timeline. Mr. Judkins at the time told Cynthia, what you have to do is, you have to fix this runway the moment the last shuttle launches and in 6 months before the next shuttle goes up. There is no room for negotiation. There is no extension. You got to make this happen. And for her family members, and I wasn't there, but I can tell you because I've been with her, she gave that typical Cynthia kind of, this thing with the head. Like, okay, no problem, sir. Easy, I'll take care of it. And she did. She took care of it, wound up fixing a design flaw with the drainage during the project, built a temporary runway so she kept aircraft actively moving because on the Air Force side is where we test all our new aircraft, and she did a bang-up job. In the first 6 months, Cynthia wound up being the company grade of the officer twice for our civilians. That's captains, first lieutenants, and second lieutenants. Those are company grade officers. She was only there 6 months, and she was the company grade officer of the quarter twice, which means all her 6 months she shined, and then wound up being company grade officer of the year as well. And so right away, Mr. Jenkins knew he had a superior performer. So he made her squadron section commander. And in those days, for us older guys and ladies, a squadron section commander was the commander's second-hand person who you could delegate some of your responsibilities as a commander as long as you trusted them and they had good character and integrity, because they were going to make decisions about people's lives for you on your behalf. And so Cynthia did that for 2 years and did a great job. So, as we all know, Cynthia, she tends to get a little bored sometimes and likes to do adventurous things. She decides, my next assignment will be an exchange officer, and I'm going to go work with the Navy Seabees, which is their equivalent of civil engineers. And she arrives in Gulfport, Mississippi in June of 2002 on her way for a 1-year assignment with the Seabees. She shows up and she is the assistant ops officer for the Seabees. And as much as I love the Seabees and the Navy, I can tell you that they tend to treat their women pretty tough, especially in the Civil Engineering Corps. But that just motivated Cynthia even more. She wound up taking care of a lot of the deployment stuff. And what everybody has to remember, in this time, the United States of America is about to go to war with Iraq. So Cynthia's responsibility is to get 992 Seabees from multiple places in the United States and $40 million of their equipment assets to Kuwait. 100% successful. She then takes over a 1,200 person camp and becomes the commander, where she is in charge of 3 other officers, 2 chiefs, which would be E7 Master Sergeants in the Air Force and 14 NCOs. And that camp's responsibility is responsible for quick reactions for our convoys that are crossing from Kuwait into Iraq on the way to Baghdad. Again, she gets a little bored. She decides, you know what, I want to go where the fun is. She jumps on a convoy, and this is the part the family may not know, but everything's good. She jumps on a convoy and winds up being one of the first engineers, Air Force engineers, actually to arrive in the city of Baghdad with the Navy Seabees, as we conquered Baghdad and took over from the country. So she did great things. On her performance reports, and you know, sometimes the other services write theirs differently. I got a feeling Cynthia had an input, but I also know that the Navy definitely had an input, because in the first box, her immediate commander, or major at the time, a lieutenant commander in the Navy, said, the Navy needs more officers like her. That's quite a compliment coming from that corps. And then her commander, who's an 05 lieutenant colonel equivalent in the Air Force, says, just put her in the lead and the mission will get done. As simple as that. I couldn't have picked better words myself, and that's the way Cynthia is. So she finishes up that tour, and in 2003, July, she joins the 437 CES at Charleston Air Force Base. It just so happens a week later, I joined the 432nd at Charleston Air Force Base as the commander. And so we came there together, and we eventually would leave together too in July of 2005. But Cynthia becomes my chief of maintenance engineering for our non-Air Force people. That's a person responsible for all of the maintenance and the infrastructure on the entire installation. I told Cynthia the program was broken and it needed to be fixed, and I expected it to be done very quickly. She gave me that nod. First time I saw it, gave me that nod, said, yes sir, got it, no problem. She took a $10.5 million program and fixed all the energy problems on the base, saving us $3.2 million in the first year. She actually started a cooperative dialogue between our operations flight and our engineering flight, and our Air Force officers will really appreciate this, where they actually talk to each other at least once a week, so that we didn't have overlapping things where one person would fix something, the other one would go break it because they didn't bother to talk. And in the first year, we saved $69,000 in modifications just from having simple dialogue. It was great having her there. By the end of the year, Cynthia was my #1 of 11 company grade officers in the squadron. She also wound up being the company grade officer of the year for the squadron, and she was named the 437 Civil Engineering Lance P. Saigon winner. For our civilian compounds, Lance P. Saigon was an Air Force Academy graduate, pilot, who was shot down over Vietnam. He escaped from 4 POW camps and eventually was killed. But to earn his leadership award is the highest honor that any Air Force member can win. And Cynthia was the winner of our squadron for that year. In the next quarter, so this would be January through March of 2004, we, at an operational flying wing, we fly C-17s at Charleston. And so Cynthia's competition are a lot of captains who are pilots, as we call the senior CGOs. And so she winds up winning the company grade officer senior captain category for the entire wing. And that's against a lot of flying pilots, which is, again, quite an accomplishment. #1 of 231. Superior person, just my top notch. My group commander at the time, Colonel Chris Doran, decides to take Cynthia away from me and puts her in charge of his Survival Recovery Center. So again, for our civilian counterparts, if you think of FEMA, who comes in after major floods or damage, there has to be a hub, somebody in charge of the engineers and the firefighters and the comm and the personnelists and logistics. That's our SRC, that's the Survival Recovery Center for the Air Force. Cynthia became the colonel's #2 person, his exec, because he said, I need somebody who can take charge, read my mind, and make things happen. And I told him, well, sir, that's what I have her doing for me. And he said, well, you have to look at the bigger team. And I said, you're absolutely right. She's on your way. So she did a great job there for the SRC and helped us get an outstanding during our IG inspection. But the most notable part of our tour together at Charleston is upcoming, because in August of 2004, our command decides that the Charleston Air Force Base Civil Engineer Leadership Team is going to deploy. Our command decides that the Charleston Air Force Base Civil Engineer Leadership Team is going to deploy to Iraq. Commander, First Sergeant, Chief, and 2 officers have to go over to Iraq. first one I thought about, I honestly have to go. First one I thought about is going with me, though, is Cynthia, because she's got combat experience with the Seabees. And besides, I need somebody who wants to tell something to do something twice to get it done, because she reads my mind very well already and gets things done, and I know. And we had a great first sergeant going with us. Lieutenant Michelle Elaine was also part of our team. And at first, Chief Master Sergeant Carla Sharman was going. Unfortunately, Chief found out she was pregnant 2 months before we deployed, so we had to get a replacement. But we took off from Charleston in late October, went to Baltimore, went to Frankfurt, Germany, wound up landing at Qatar, spent the night in Qatar in Qatar. Spent the night in Qatar, got our briefing about what was going on, what we were going to do. You have to understand that what we were going to do was we're going to take over this unit. It's called the 732nd Expeditionary Civil Engineering Squadron. Our mission was to support the Army forward operating bases throughout Iraq and Kuwait, outside the wire, outside the safety of the installation. And when we weren't outside, then we were taking care of things at home, because the organic assets of the Army were short and they were always on the move. So the Air Force came to the fight, the joint fight, to help our teammates in the Army. And that was our job. That's what we got a briefing on. So we jumped on a plane, C-130. One of the things I'll never forget, late at night, midnight actually, we took off. We're flying in, humming along here, and had the lights, kind of on. We were talking about what we were going to do when we landed. And as soon as we go into Iraqi airspace, all the lights go out. We go into condition black, dark out, and the pilot announces, you have just crossed into Iraqi airspace. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that don't believe all that stuff you see on TV about people not being scared, because I'll tell you right now, the Parker factor kicked in 100%. Lights out, we're in Iraq in a combat zone, and we're in the Air Force. What are we doing here, right? But it was all good. We finally landed at our base at Balad, got off at 3 o'clock in the morning, got all settled in, took over, had a change of command, and got ready to do our job. So we had 14 different units, 4 in Kuwait, 10 in Iraq, 437 engineers spread throughout the entire country, and our job was to make sure that they had all the logistical support they needed, the tools, the materials, and the leadership guidance to get things happening. Again, Cynthia, being the only one with experience, was our sounding board on times. One of my most memorable experiences was driving around one day with Michelle, Lieutenant Elaine, and Cynthia and her had to bunk together at night because there were very few women in the combat zone at the time. And so they were kind of seeing each other about 22 hours a day, which can be a little tedious on anybody, believe me. And so Michelle finally comes out and starts complaining, like, Colonel, Cynthia's always telling me to do this and do that, and she's always like, won't let me rest. And so I pull over the truck, and I look at Michelle, and I look at her, straighten eyes and say, Michelle, maybe she's doing that to make sure that we save our lives. Because we haven't been here before, but she has. And from that day forward, I've never heard a peep out of Michelle again. Although I will tell you, in about 3 weeks, I did split them up. Because 183 days is way too long. But it was all good. We all got along, right? Yeah, I think. Both sides. It was good for both sides. Yeah. So again, I'm just going to touch on 1 or 2 things that we did while we were over there that are exceptionally memorable. One of our detachments, we called it the famous Det 3, was down in Abu Ghraib prison. And so the Air Force responsibility, this was a 3-fold mission for the DOD. The Marines had security of the prison and the base. The Air Force came and took care of the detainee village where they lived and built anything that the Army needed, because the Army's responsibility was actually to watch over the prisoners and do the interrogations. And of course, there's lots of things that's been shown on the news that were done and things like that. But I will tell you, our mission was to take care of the detainee center and take care of those Marines and those soldiers that were there. And our detachment of 50 people did an exceptional job. So initially, I had a major in charge down there, and about 4 months into our time period, the major kind of lost her way on what her job was and who she worked for, and things like that. And eventually, my group commander and myself recalled her back to Balad, and we had to relieve her of command and send her home. But this now left a void, because the other captain, the other officer that was at Det 3, we had already forward deployed him down to the very tip of Iraq to build this other little prison camp called Camp Buka. And so there was no officer in charge at Det 3. And so what did I have to do? Well, I had to send my go-to person, as Colonel Hartman likes to call him, my go-to person down to take care of those troops down at Abu Ghraib prison. She flew down, took over. In 2 days, the morale had changed 180 degrees. The senior NCOs were calling my chief and my first sergeant and said, "Sir, I wish you would have done this 2 months ago, because life is so much better. We know what we need to do. We know we have top cover. Captain Cleffish is awesome." But we all knew that ahead of time. That's why we sent her down to fix it. But she did some great things down there. Took care of the Red Cross, changed the attitude down there. Her most notable achievement, I would think the U.S. Marines will say, is that she figured out a way to build steel plate protection for the Marines who were stationed at the top of the prison, who were taking pot shots from sharpshooters, from snipers. And they couldn't fire back because they were always below their sandbags. Well, Cynthia and her team came up with this steel plating that left them places to put their guns through so that they actually could return fire and safely without being shot at. So for the Marines to come up and say, "Hey, Air Force, we love you, we still want you here," to me that was an achievement. No Marines got lost on her watch either. So great job. Great job. So then we finally come back. The other thing that notable that she did, about the April 2005 timeframe, we get a tasking to stand up another one of these teams in this little city called Tikrit. Well, Tikrit is, for those who don't know, Tikrit is north of Baghdad, 200 miles roughly, but it's the home of Saddam Hussein. So all the sympathizers are in that city. We have to go up there and set up a base and put a public works team up there. So the chief and I and Cynthia, we fly up there. We find that there is 0 accommodations. I believe we spent the night in his palace on the floor in sleeping bags. And then the next day I got to go back with the chief, and I looked at Cynthia and said, "It's all yours. We got to make this happen. We got 14 guys coming. Find a place for them to live, work, sleep, and safe." And she gave me that nod. "Got it, sir, no problem. I'll see you in about a week." I said, "You think you'll be back in a week?" "Yeah, I'll be back in a week." "Okay, all right." 5 days later, she comes back in the door, back in Milan. "Cynthia, what'd you back so early for?" "Well, everything's good. They're running. They got a place to eat. They're working. I came back to find something else to do." It was just that way all the time. It's such a pleasure, as commanders will tell you, to have officers or NCOs that you can turn to and go, "You make that happen," and they just go do it for you. So we returned finally back to Charleston. So at the tail end of that, I just want to pass on to you that I got selected for 06 at that time. So I go into this pool of assignments. We call it the Colonel Game Plan. None of us understand it, but it's in the best interest of the Air Force, we think. And I get a call from then Colonel Byers, then later to be General Byers and General Hubert, and go, "Kyle, hey, I got this opportunity. How would you like to go to Hickam Air Force Base and be the base civil engineer, and then we'll bring you up to the command?" And I said, "Sir, thank you for the offer, but how about if I just go straight to the command and skip that? This is my 3rd in a row. I think I need a break from commanding." He goes, "Okay, no problem." And I said, "Hey, Colonel Byers at the time, by the way, if you have another slot on your staff, I have a sharp captain who would make your staff even better. Her name is Cynthia Cleffish. So if you can find a way to get her there, I think you will not regret it." Lo and behold, come April, Cynthia gets orders to Hickam. I get orders to Hickam. We go back. We sign out of Charleston in July of 05, and Hawaii bound we are. And for the next 3 years, Cynthia's over in Hawaii. I go to the environmental division. For the first year, Cynthia becomes the geobase chief. Geobase is the mapping system that you may see at your local community, in your local communities, where you can tell the streets are, and the utility runs, and the lights. So imagine doing that for an area from the coast of California
north to Alaska, south to Australia, to the east coast of Africa. That's what her area of responsibility was for her geobase guys, and all the mapping entailed with that. All the little islands, everything. That's what her team did. And she did an exceptional job. So exceptional that her team's mapping system became the Air Force standard later on through her tour. So I moved over to Ops after about a year. Cynthia became my chief of maintenance engineering. And we had an incredible team. And we had a lot of fun, didn't we? We used to go out and visit the bases, take care of them. I was lucky enough, or I'll say crafty enough maybe, I actually hired Carissa. She became one of our contractors who worked on our team, because Carissa had also been with us at Charleston as well. And we just played a lot of golf and did a lot of TDYs, cooked out, and just had a ball for the next 2 years. And then Cynthia got promoted to major. And so once she got promoted to major, it's time to move on. And I told Cynthia there are 2 jobs that I think are the best in the Air Force. The number one is the Chief of Ops, because that's the one that's the most fun. And then there's being a CE commander, because that is the ultimate job that every officer wants. So we got her down to Yokota Air Base as the Chief of Ops. And she flew into Yokota Air Base, working for a guy named Lieutenant Colonel Nam Shelton, which we all will know. And she shows up, and she's ready to go, hit the ground running, and Colonel Shelton gets deployed 2 months after she arrives. So now, the brand new major becomes the brand new CE commander, as well as the ops chief. And her first sergeant deploys with NAM as well. And so now she's got to get an active first sergeant, and she still has to run the squadron. Kicks butt. Kicks butt. Fixes several things to include a dorm shortage problem. She fixes a consumption problem because they have diesel fuel fired a heat plant. Saves $3.2 million in the first year because she instituted a plan for maintenance, that maintenance engineering in Hurricane Mountain. The group commander said she was an impressive temporary commander who should command again. And she will get that opportunity. In February of 2009, Cynthia gets a call from our assignment center. It says, Major Cleffage, guess what? You've been selected for a golden opportunity. And we tease in the Air Force, that usually means you were not a volunteer. And she wasn't, but it was an outstanding thing. One of only 16 officers were selected, civil engineering officers that year, to go down to SOS, Squadron Officer School in Montgomery, Alabama, and teach our finest, brightest, and finest captains how to be good officers for 2 years, and then in exchange, she would actually get to go to professional military education, which is called Air Command and Staff College in resident, as payback for 2 years of instruction. So she shows up there, she becomes a great instructor. In her second year, she is actually selected Instructor of the Year, an honorary instructor. 2 notable things I saw in your records there, Cynthia, was that she fixed or enhanced what we call the outdoor exercise program at SOS, which all of us enjoy as captains because they send you out to this impossible mission with no tools and all these rules about things you can't touch, but they expect you to get 5 people from point A to point B. So she went down and enhanced that and made it even tougher, probably from her CV time and her deployment time, but the class was rated #1 by all the students when she finished up. Instituted a language class that helped people get used to deploying, because our captains in particular were deploying a lot to Afghanistan and Iraq and other places. So you had to really learn how to do the culture, especially if you went outside the wire and dealt with the local community. You know, it's a non-alcoholic country, so you drink lots of tea, and there are certain ceremonies, you don't do things with your left hand, that you do in the United States. So the students loved that class too, and she did great. Goes on to ACSC, graduates from ACSC. Her follow-on assignment is now Headquarters Air Force Special Operations Command, where she's working for a guy named Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Costler. All of us know Cost, he's a good guy, retired this summer. And she is now in charge of CE operations under his branch. She goes in there with gangbusters, fixes all of the problems with our, what we call our pop-up barriers at the gates, which we still have some problems with today, but we're working hard on it. But she fixes those for the AFSOC bases. And first year, she becomes the #1 of 3 branch chiefs for Jimmy. And then she gets tasked again to deploy. And where she is, remember this acronym, Combined Joint Special Operations Air Component A7. So A7 means it's the person in charge of security forces, civil engineering, and contracting, all under one umbrella, all under one person. So our Major Cleffish is now that person in Afghanistan at an installation supporting 2,000 special operators to do what it is that they do. And she does a great job there too. Matter of fact, so great that people want her to come back. But she now has to go back to her family. Because lo and behold, we have Ruby at home waiting for mommy to come home. So she comes back home and she winds up being the #1 officer under AFSOC again. This time, the A7 at AFSOC is Colonel Dave Peach. Tough old guy. We all know Dave. But to get his #1, you, excuse my French for just a second, you had to be shit hot. It's all it is to it, because he didn't give those away lightly. But Cynthia was the #1 field grade officer for Colonel Peach at the time. And so now she's doing what she's doing, and she's still in operations, the toughest division, and she gets on the commander's list, but she doesn't get selected for command. So she thinks she's good. They decide, Carissa and Cynthia decide, time to start a family, have another child, and then with 30 days notice, one of our commanders decides to opt out, which means he decides to separate from the Air Force from a command billet he was going to. Cynthia's on the list, she gets the call, she goes, you have 30 days to be in this command. Great, she's going to command. Where is it, sir? It's at Al Dhafar Air Base in the United Arab Emirates. 1-year assignment, no family allowed. Tough job, tough decision on both of them. As again, I stated, Cynthia and Carissa were trying to have a second child. And so she says, okay, salutes sharply. Says, if that's what the mission calls me to do, I'm gonna go do it. And off she goes with 30 days notice on a 1-year remote. Incredible. No complaints in public. I'm sure she had some choice words behind the scenes, but you know, once again, our Air Force officers are all volunteers. Nobody was drafted. Therefore, if you get selected to go do a job, you go do it. That's all it is to it. And so she went and did that, and did a great job there. I guess a couple of notable things. #1 is she opened, within 1 year, opened 13 MWR facilities, morale, welfare, and recreation for MWR. A couple of new fitness centers, some new rec centers. This is all very important when you're in a deployed location and can't leave the base, because there's only so much video you can look at. There's only so much internet you can look at. You need to be able to go work out. You need to be able to, swim if you can, play some ping pong, play some pool, interact with people, because you're all away from home. That builds camaraderie and keeps the morale high. And so she did all that. And in fact, she was the one responsible for opening the first USO in the AOR at Al Dhafar, because it probably was a pretty safe place to bring USO tours and things like that. And so, yeah, she did that. The other thing she did, she got a 2-week call from her MSG at the time. She said, Cynthia, I have something news for you. You have to keep in mind now, Al Dhafar is about 900 facilities, 750 acres, and 8 different Air Force and DoD flying missions, right? Cynthia, have some news. Yes, sir, what is it? I need you to bed down the Royal Australian Air Force. They'll be here in 2 weeks. They're bringing 381 people and their jets. Can you make that happen for us? Sure, sir, no problem, can do. There's areas set up, jets land, Aussies get off the plane. Wow, you Air Force guys know how to do it. So again, there's nothing too big for Cynthia to handle. Great job, great job. While she's on the tail end of her tour there, she has competed again for command, and she gets selected to be the CD commander at Buckley Air Force Base in Colorado. Great job, Cynthia. The children can go, Carissa can go, everybody can go to Colorado. They look forward to this. Okay, so now she's on her way to Buckley. She gets to Buckley and assumes command, 197 people, Space Command mission, no aircraft there, but very important HVAC, electrical support for the things that are done at Buckley to help control satellites and other things that we do there. In the first 6 months, Cynthia kicks ass again. She's great at what she does. She keeps the squadron charged up. She becomes the Field Grade Officer of the Year for the MSG. So I'll set the stage for you for the non-military members. There are 6 squadrons in the Mission Support Group, the MSG. All 6 squadrons are commanded by Field Grade Officers. So in essence, by winning that award, she became the #1 commander in the MSG in the first 6 months. Others had been there for 18 months already. So that tells you the caliber of person that Cynthia Clefish is. In the month of March, the Inspector General team comes in. Cynthia Squadron is the only squadron out of those 6 MSG squadrons to attain the rating of excellence from the ORI and the IG. All the rest of the squadrons got a satisfactory. Again, going above and beyond, setting the standard for those who follow. Around the June time frame, there becomes a difference of agreement between her and her boss. And so Cynthia decides, and the Air Force decides, to relocate Cynthia back down to San Antonio. Cynthia is now pregnant 7 months with Pearl. Tough transition, tough time to move, but again, like the champ she is, she salutes sharply, says, "Yes, sir, let me go do that." And she comes down and joins the mighty P&I team, where she becomes a program analyst integrator. That had to be a Colonel Hartman name. But really what she's doing is the Air Force has just decided that we're going to stand up this new command called Air Force Installation and Mission Support, and we're going to transfer some duties from our major commands to this new command, and now we have to rewrite rules, and we have to rewrite Air Force instructions and regulations, and change the way that we have done business for the last 30 years. And so you need an integrator, you need an analyst to make sure that these processes are fixed and changed and make things work for us. Because the whole Air Force is changing at the same time, but the Air Force mission hasn't changed. It hasn't stopped, we're not flying anymore. So we're still doing all the same things we're doing. 2 quick things I found through that she figured out how to do. She figured out how to fund, after going to deep analysis, a $50 million disconnect of the utilities privatization program. And figured out how to budget it so we wouldn't have that sudden bill because somebody else made an error, which was outstanding. She also figured out how to what we call retool what we call AFCOs, Air Force Common Operating Levels of Service, which tells everybody across the Air Force a level of service for custodial, grass cutting, refuge cleanup, multiple things. But people were doing them different. And now that we had a new command who was responsible for taking care of those things, we needed to retool that and make sure that they worked. And Cynthia jumped right on top of that and took care of it.
October 2018. Signed, General David L. Goldfein, Chief of Staff. Certificate of Appreciation for Service to the United States of the Air Force, presented to Lieutenant Colonel Cynthia Clefish. The achievements and contributions you have made throughout your career are indicative of the core values of our great service. Your retirement is well-deserved, but your selfless contributions will be sorely missed. On behalf of all airmen, thank you for your faithful and devoted service to our nation. As this chapter of your life closes and a new one begins, I hope the years ahead are filled with more great memories and continued success. Signed, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Caitlin Wright. Certificate of Appreciation for Service in the Armed Forces of the United States. Lieutenant Colonel Cynthia R. Clefish, I extend you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation for your contribution and honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. Your commitment and dedication have been an inspiration for those who will follow in your footsteps and for all Americans who join me today in saluting you for a job extremely well done. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future. Signed, Donald Trump, Commander-in-Chief. We would like to now invite Carissa Arnett to the stage. Carissa will now place the retirement pin on her wife's lapel. We would also like to present Carissa with a certificate of appreciation for her steadfast support of Lieutenant Colonel Cleffish throughout her career. Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force. In general appreciation, the United States Air Force presents the Certificate of Recognition to Carissa Arnett for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service. Signed, David L. Goldfein, Chief of Staff. Certificate of Appreciation on behalf of all Air Force airmen and their families. I join your spouse, family, and friends in thanking you for the numerous contributions and sacrifices you made in support of our United States Air Force. Your dedication gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service in defense of our nation. Signed, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Kayla Wright. We would now like to invite Ruby and Pearl to the stage. We would also like to present both Ruby and Pearl with the certificates of appreciation for their steadfast support of their mom throughout her career. Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force. In grateful appreciation for their support and loyalty as United States Air Force dependents. Their contributions and sacrifice have made Lieutenant Colonel Cleffish a proud mother and gave her the inspiration to serve her nation with integrity and honor. Colonel Hicks and Lieutenant Cleffish, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Hartman will now make a presentation on behalf of the men and women of the Air Force Civil Engineer Center.
I'm too old to hold on to that. So, what do y'all think? Should I have the mic again or no? Don't do that. Exit stage left. Well, I can't do better than Colonel Hicks did. I mean, you've had a brilliant career for an airman that has just served and served and served. And what I like to hear is the leadership, the strength of character, the leadership. And I, too, have seen the little head taunt. So one thing that we didn't talk about today, one thing that we went through as an organization, if you've ever been through a big organizational change, that is not an easy thing. There's emotion tied to it. There's folks that realize that when things move around, sometimes people move with that, and you kind of get tensed up, and you need somebody with kind of a level character, but with a kind of a brilliance to be able to talk you back off the ledge at times. And guess what? So when that came about, who did we turn to? We turned to Cynthia and said, you know what, we need somebody to kind of help really be the cat herder, I'll use that term, keeping all of the different engineers involved in this particular effort together, and also kind of running the show. So you had a lot of people, the good idea fairies, like people like me. Then you need somebody to actually make sense of that and actually keep us going in the right direction, which may sound easy, but it's not. So that I got to see some of the brilliance when we saddled her with that, so to speak, and she hit a home run for sure. And so from the mighty P&I family, it's one of those bittersweet moments where you get good officers, you get good airmen, and you don't want to let them go, right? You just like, okay, they're great, please stay with me. But it's time, and I really appreciate your service. I appreciate the time that you spent with the P&I team because you've made a difference. And once again, just in that vignette of moment where you also made a difference in the life of another, I mean, I absolutely respect that. As a commander and as an airman, that was one of my favorite things to do, is see people do great things and take care of others in those selfless service acts. And I got this, unfortunately, it's been a short time, but I've got to see that over the last couple years. And this is a bittersweet moment to say thank you again for your service. Thank you for what you've done for our Air Force, and thank you for what you've done for the P&I team. And so for us, I mean, hopefully, I don't know when the name's going to change, but I think our name is going to change, so this will also be kind of a cool legacy toy, right? But one of the things that matters a lot to us is the AFCET crest. And this is a symbol of really what I view of as the center of gravity for civil engineers, and what I also view, I'm biased, I'll admit, but a very, very great organization from the leadership on down that makes sure that all of our installations, all those things you heard about today, making an installation go, we don't do that, but we sure as heck enable that. And it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of perseverance, and it takes a lot of give a shit factor of making sure that our installations have what they need to operate. And Cynthia did that in spades. But what it reads is basically, thank you for your leadership and service to our nation. AFCIC and our Air Force, we're blessed to have you leading the way, and that's what engineers do, we lead the way.
Thank you, Colonel Hartman. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to give the floor to Lieutenant Colonel Klefish.
I want to start by thanking Major Deering, who was instrumental to planning the ceremony today. Something as meaningful as this has not come together on its own, and I'm grateful to all the people that participated and all the helpers who chipped in to make this special day happen today for me and my family. Those that volunteered to be the honor guard, flying details, thanks again. I know I came around to a few of you earlier. Also, I want to thank all the distinguished visitors here. Mr. Oshiba, I wasn't expecting you here, so it's nice to have you here. Thanks for coming, and all the colonels in attendance. Of course, it's glad to see you. I'm glad to see you on my last day here. And then, I'm just so fortunate to have so many loving family members and friends as a part of my support system. I would like to ask all those people that came in from outside of San Antonio to please stand and be recognized for coming all this way. So I see, so many wonderful faces in the audience, and I'm just glad to see everybody. Many of y'all I haven't seen in a lot of years, so it's good to catch up with you. Chris and I are so blessed to have people like you around us. And many of our local friends and coworkers are here today as well, and we're so grateful for your presence because you are major parts of our life now and in our future as we stay in San Antonio. And when people ask me, when did you want to join the military? I always respond with this story from when I was a kid. I was the youngest of 4 kids in my family, and always tagging along with my brothers and their neighborhood gang of boys. And I remember one particular day when they decided to play war. And that I could play too if I agreed to be their POW. I said yes, of course. And they positioned me at the bottom of a yard inside my cell, a cardboard box. And they threw some old cornflakes, some stale cornflakes to me for me to survive on. Then they had me dress up in many layers of clothing and told me to run to the top of the hill while they shot at me with BB guns. I managed to survive that, so I figured the military would be a piece of cake. So, in all seriousness, I joined like a lot of others my age when I was offered a scholarship for college. I feel like the Air Force had offered me an opportunity and a path to start down. And that was why I joined, and I planned to stay as long as I was having fun. You know, one assignment led to another. When I was at Captain Station in Hawaii, the Air Force was offering an incentive bonus for officers to leave the service. And I had been on the fence and used this as an incentive to leave. And it was going to take, you know, it was going to make being near Carissa a lot easier, and I figured I could do something else. I had my separation papers all prepared and even signed by Colonel Hicks, who had tried to convince me to stay. But I'd already made up my mind. I walked down, you know, my papers down to the personnel flight office. But on that particular afternoon, they were closed for training. And for some reason, I never went back. So, you know, I've loved all of the opportunities the Air Force has given me. I've traveled the world leading projects and people, using teamwork to see amazing things happen. But I had a big problem and conflict in my life. I had been in a relationship with Carissa for 7 years at that point, and it was a secret, you know, that we had to keep from the world, and it weighed heavy on us. And every deployment, every assignment away, no one ever thought that I was leaving someone behind. So it was hard to pretend for all those years. But I'm so proud to be a part of the last wave of service members that had to serve and live under the burden of don't ask, don't tell. Coming out after this policy was removed was relief, but also very scary. Because, you know, it risk impacting your reputation and future leadership opportunities. And there was no guide on how to do this. So we were the first same-sex couple to give birth at Eglin Air Force Base. We were the first same-sex commander to spouse living on base at Commander's Row at Buckley Air Force Base. But, you know, I'm proud to be, you know, I'm proud of this part of this journey because I realized what a unique experience this was and how we were able to overcome it as a couple. And when I was sitting down to write this speech, I wanted to think of some, you know, significant memories. And over, what came to mind were not achievements, but the remarkable people, you know, I've met and worked with in this wild adventure. Most people that know me know that I don't like to be the center of attention. And being part of a team truly brings me joy. And every good trait I had as a leader, you know, I learned from someone else. And one of the best examples is my mentor, Colonel Hicks, Kyle Hicks, who did an absolutely fantastic job today. Talking about all the things I would probably never mention in conversation to anybody. So he traveled all the way from Hawaii to help me celebrate today. He was my commander at Charleston Air Force Base, and I loved working with him since day one. We had an instant connection. What stands out the most about him was his passion to succeed and being very proud to be CE. Whatever you brought to him, he became his passion too. He was willing to do whatever it took to get things done and support your ideas. And I cannot think of my military career without him. want to thank my sister Suzanne and my brothers, Doug and Michael. Michael couldn't make it here today, but I know he's thinking about me, but for their support throughout my career. You know, I'm the youngest, so they've always been very supportive of me and proud of my accomplishments my whole career. Your faith in my abilities and, you know, help believe, me believe that I could achieve great things. And I want to thank all of Chris's family that traveled here today to support me. The fact that you all recognize this event as a part of our family's achievement means so much to us both. My dad, Lyle, passed away 2 years ago, and I miss him not being here today, and I know you would be so proud. And I want to thank my mom, Beverly, because she worked really hard to provide for us and did the best she could. And I know both of my parents wanted more in life for us. You know, that helped me move forward. And I want to thank our two girls, Ruby and Pearl. Your mommy and I are so happy to be your parents. And I can't wait to spend much more time with you. Please come to the stage so my mom can give you some flowers. All right. And finally, I want to thank my wife, Carissa, who has sacrificed and supported me all these years. We've been together for 17 years, and we've been separated 7 of those. You know, we met when we were both lieutenants at our Civil Engineer 101 school. We connected instantly and developed an everlasting bond through all the ups and downs of military life. She's been the stay-at-home mom since we had Ruby about six years ago. Right after she was born, when she was about 6 months old, I received a 6-month deployment and a 1-year short tour back-to-back. And Carissa had to be a single parent for a while. And I know I couldn't have done what she did. She even made special videos of the family for me that are like gold. And I know I won't be deploying anymore, but she still might have to keep making those videos. Sorry. I can't do that. She's been an unbelievable mom to Ruby, Pearl, and our cat Twinkle, and our dog Rizzo. She captured my heart with her wit, humor, and love. Will you all help me welcome Carissa to the stage for her bouquet of flowers? And, you know, when I was telling people I was retiring, the first question I usually get is, what do you plan to do next? What job will you do? And I've been in a period of reflection, you know, over the past year, answering this question. I've recently been diagnosed with Huntington's disease, a progressive degenerative It's a degenerative neurological disease similar to Parkinson's, ALS, and Alzheimer's. So this diagnosis has caused me to look at my life with such gratitude and freedom now. Because I don't have to worry about career achievements. And live everyday life to the fullest with my family. So summer ice cream Sundays and dance recitals in my living room and learning to cartwheel. These are my passions now, and I'm beyond thrilled to pursue them. All right. So thank you all for being a part of the ceremony today. But even more thanks for your presence in our lives. There are just truly too many people to mention as meaningful and significant to my Air Force career. I'm so grateful and humbled to have been honored in this way today. But I want to talk to each of you in the reception afterwards and laugh about good times. Get over the crying part. And I look forward to all the life holds in the next phase of my adventure. And I have a great life. Thank you very much.
Of the United States Air Force are proud to have served with Lieutenant Colonel Klepish and wish her and her family every success in their future endeavors. Thank you for attending, and please join Lieutenant Colonel Klepish and her family for a reception immediately following the ceremony. Please rise for the playing of the Air Force song and the departure of the official party.